The fight over how much testing is enough. Dr. Fauci testifies before the Senate. Cuomo calls it a European virus. Unmasking the unmaskers, courtesy of the Director of National Intelligence. A list of 2,000 deep staters for us to peruse. And an update on the Arbery shooting coming up.
In every generation, through every challenge and hardship and danger, America has risen to the task. We have met the moment, and we have prevailed. Americans do whatever it takes to find solutions, pioneer breakthroughs, and harness the energies we need to achieve a total victory. Day after day, we're making tremendous strides with the dedication of our doctors and nurses. These are incredible people. These are brave people. These are warriors. With the devotion of our manufacturing workers, food suppliers, and lab technicians, and with the profound patriotism of the American people, we will defeat this horrible enemy.
Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everybody. There you have the president yesterday addressing the American people on where we are with this fight against the coronavirus, notably on how we're doing on the issue of testing. And this has been the rallying cry of the anti-Trumpers for a while, that we don't have good enough testing, that we're being reckless because of the lack of testing. So Trump laid out a whole bunch of statistics yesterday, presented to the press and to the American people along with them, where we stand right now. And you're already hearing there's a back and forth, there's a fight. The Democrats say not good enough on testing. Now, there are reasons for this. Oh, here is Bro Cuomo telling us, and I'm always wondering whenever I see Cuomo on the cut sheet, which one of the bros Cuomo are we talking about? This is the CNN. This is the Fredo of the two. Play clip 7.
Let's be clear with each other. There's no time to pretend. We have not met the moment. We have not prevailed on testing. None of the states that have reopened, none has the capacity to test and trace the way they need to. People still can't even get tested in too many hotspots. This is the reality. And until this president starts taking desperate actions, instead of just making desperate claims, you can't expect any of us to have the confidence that we need in this country to reopen. That only comes with the truth that testing and tracing can provide.
Let me break this down for some of the anti-Trump idiots out there, because they haven't thought this through. If we had the most magnificent, the most wonderful, it sounds like Trump describing a lot of things, right? But if we had the greatest testing system in the history of the planet, if we were 10x where South Korea is, if you could walk and get a test at the corner as quickly as you could walk and get a carton of milk, would that mean that you no longer have any worries about this disease? From an epidemiological standpoint, would that actually mean that you don't have to be concerned if you're in a high-risk category? They speak of testing like it's a vaccine or a cure or a treatment. All it is additional data. And the problem that we haven't yet had the experts focus enough on is, what if the lockdowns aren't really helping? We know they're destroying the economy. What if the lockdowns aren't really able to stop the spread of the virus? So it's still spreading all over the place. Now we're told that with testing, we'll be better able to prevent the disease from getting around. It's already spreading to 3. This is based on the expert analysis out there. 3,000 new cases a day in the U.S., and they think 300,000 new infections a day. That was what Scott Gottlieb of the FDA told CBS a week ago. I have not seen that challenged everywhere. 300,000 people are getting infected with this every day based on that extrapolation. Do you really think that if we just know who those 300,000 people... scratch that. Do you think that if we had the best testing in the world, we would ever be able to track in real time those 300,000 people and prevent them from possibly infecting one other person? Or 2 or 3 or who knows how many? There's so much about this disease we don't really understand. Why are some people, it seems, there's a theory out there about super spreaders, that there are some people that have much higher viral load that they shed than others. They don't know this. This is just a theory, but there are a lot of theories. And the problem with the people that keep saying, listen to the experts, is that the experts don't have all the answers. In fact, they have very few answers on this. All we really have is data and then educated guesses. And the data tells us that right now, while they're all whining about testing, and the reason they're doing it is very clearly because this is an opportunity to make this about the administration response. Right? We've lost the numbers as of today. Over 80,000 people are dying every day, even with the status of the virus as it is. So, what is this new focus on? Oh, there's a recklessness from the Trump administration because of the lack of testing. It's not going to stop people who have the disease from dying. It's almost certainly not going to be able to prevent this disease from continuing to spread. You know, we have here's a perfect example. I mean, just apply your own logic and thought processes to this. Don't get cowed. Don't get pushed around by people who say, oh, look at this expert, look at that expert. You want to see how brilliant Dr. Fauci is when it comes to prediction? Go back and read what he was saying about AIDS in the 1980s and who was at risk and how it was spread and what we needed to do to contain it. It was about as wrong as a human being can be about anything. But he's the global expert on... Right. But we had 30 years of knowledge of what HIV actually is, and we learned about it, and we had real data, and then we all, once the information is in, then we all have access to that, then we all know what the truth is. But in the early stages, the experts don't have some magic crystal ball where they can say, well, this is what's going to happen with this, or this is how the numbers will end up. They have no idea. This is why all these projections have been ridiculous. But just think it through this way. I had the flu confirmed, a diagnosis of the flu 4 years ago now. Right, actually, when I started my syndicated radio show, I got rocked with the flu. I was able to go to a neighborhood, clinic and get a quick, rapid flu test diagnosis. And yeah, they said you got the flu, and I went home. Okay, I probably had been contagious for 3 days before that. At least 48 hours before I showed. And I didn't go to the doctor right away. So, you're contagious maybe 48 hours before you show symptoms. I went to the doctor maybe the second or third day I felt really sick. So how many people was I coming into contact with? How many people was I around in that period? I mean, I have no idea. I'm in an elevator in New York City. Lots of other people are getting on and getting off. I'm touching buttons. I'm touching door handles. I mean, test and trace as some kind of panacea is a fantasy. It's never going to happen. We have rapid tests for influenza, and it spreads like wildfire, and tens of thousands of people die from it every year, millions of cases, hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations every year. Do we have a test and trace system to prevent influenza from spreading? So why would we be able to prevent the spread of this disease through test? I'm not saying test and trace has no place. Obviously, you need to have tests for antibodies, and you need to be able to find out if you have this disease. Testing is a helpful tool. But they're putting so much on this because there's a psychological need for people right now who have been part of the lockdown chorus to think if only we did, or rather, if only Trump did this thing better, we wouldn't be in this position. That's what it all comes down to. If only Trump were not messing this up so badly. And so that's why they fixate on this one thing. They fixate on this one area because that becomes the line of attack based on the data and the science. I walked you through yesterday what the South Korean plan for test and trace is. And I think as I was reading it to you, a lot of you were thinking, well, that's never going to. It's never going to happen, and we would never allow it to happen. I'm not having the government put an ankle monitor on me and make me download an app to tell them personal health data every day and accept that they have the power to tell any person that I may have come even near before I knew that I might have had COVID-19, they have to stay home for 14 days. And have to isolate themselves from anyone else. You don't think that's going to cause problems? As I keep saying, this is just not feasible. Yeah, have some tracers, have lots of tests. We got tests everywhere. But then yesterday, it just turned into them not agreeing, them not accepting the numbers, the data. The president saying that we are now at a point where we have done more tests than any other country, and we have. I mean, whoops, sorry, slap things around sometimes here on the desk. I have a slide that the president showed at the briefing We have 79 diagnostic tests authorized, 78 nucleic acid tests, 1 antigen-based test, 25 testing devices authorized, 12 serology tests authorized. And yet, you know what the truth is? If you're at high risk and you are able to get one of these tests right away, none of these tests do anything for your prospects of not being hospitalized and making it through this disease in one piece. They don't do anything. So if you get this, you're still pretty much on your own. It's really just your own immune system. I mean, the health system will try to do what it can for you, but it's minimal. We are primitive in our response to this disease still. It is effectively systems, basic system management of your body. Try to stay hydrated. Try to stay as well rested as you can while you're fighting off this disease. There's not really much beyond that. So while they keep telling us to turn to the scientists and don't listen to Trump, they then turn around and suggest things that aren't supported at all by the science. This is going to come back in the fall. This is going to be a disease that also is spreading along with the flu, and it's going to be spreading all over the country. Even if we eradicated COVID-19 tomorrow in America, it will exist somewhere in the world. There are a lot of poorer countries that have no means of doing this kind of testing, and all it takes is one person, as we know. And there's also so many unanswered huge questions about this, like Ohio just figured out yesterday, they reported on this, 5 people in Ohio, not one of the coastal cities, not one of the, metropolises that has flights coming every day from Wuhan or from northern Italy or whatever. Ohio had 5 people with this disease who died of this disease in January. Very unlikely that remember, the fatality rate is less than 1%. So it's very unlikely that those 5 people were the first people in Ohio to get infected. And there's a 2-week incubation period. So what are the real chances that there were at least some people walking around Ohio with COVID-19 in December? Remember, we call it COVID-19. It's because we heard it was found in China then, but it might have existed in a whole lot of other places. I'm just bringing that up because there are a lot of unanswered questions. And yet there's this belief of an expert class that can tell you what we need to do, what the economy should do, how quickly we should reopen, how much testing is really acceptable. How many tests do we really need to do? I mean, here's what the president said yesterday at this press conference, which also turned into a debacle with the journos trying to make a stand against how they hate Trump, the usual nonsense. Play 4.
Every American should be proud of the amazing array of talent, skill, and enterprise our nation has brought to this challenge. In 3 months, the FDA has authorized more than 92 different tests, and over 9 million have been performed here in the United States. 3 weeks ago, we were conducting roughly 150,000 tests per day. Now we're doing approximately 300,000 tests per day, a 100% increase, and it will go up substantially from that number. This week, the United States will pass 10 million tests conducted, nearly double the number of any other country. We're testing more people per capita than South Korea, the United Kingdom, France, Japan, Sweden, Finland, and many other countries, and in some cases combined.
So here's the problem with this press conference. The liberals' favorite anti-Trump talking point, if we're not doing enough testing, it's reckless. Where's the testing? He's like, well, actually, we're doing more testing than anybody else. Certainly any country of even roughly comparable size. We are the number 1 tester in the world. You know what they did after that, though? It was stunning. They made it an issue that he was comparing us to the rest of the world. Why would you compare us? Is this a competition? Yeah, that's how dishonest the journals are. They spent weeks saying, why are we so far behind these other countries, huh? Huh, Mr. President? Why are these other countries so much better than we are at testing? So then Trump comes out. He says, all right, guess what? We're better than everybody at testing. You know what they say? Why are you comparing yourself to other countries? These people are sociopaths. They're a danger to the country. They're a disgrace. And they have access to the White House, and they're in the White House press pool. It's stunning, my friends, but that is what we are up against. The fight over testing is really just now a proxy over politics. They have no idea. Do these people even know when Cuomo's, we're not ready for this yet, Hey, someone pass me a protein shake. When someone raises, for example, that there are a lot of testing sites that do not even have people showing up, so they're closing. How are you going to get to 2 million tests a day is what Zeke Emanuel, brother of Ari Emanuel and confidant of the Obama administration, that's what he has said we need to be at. And we're, I think, at 1.3 million or something like that. We're going to be at 1.3 million a day by September. That's the guess. But we need to be at almost double that. How are you going to get so many people to take these tests? How often are they going to take them? Are you all planning to walk into a clinic every 2 weeks and get a COVID test just because? Oh, maybe the left is planning to mandate this in different states. You see, they're going to say that the data is their justification for taking even more power and authority into their hands over every aspect of this, and that means every aspect of you.
Said many times that the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if every day Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world. And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me. Ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
What, sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you. I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead.
Why does it matter?
Okay. Anybody else? Please, go ahead in the back, please.
I have two questions.
No, it's okay.
But you pointed to me. I have two questions, Mr. President.
Next, please.
But you called on me.
I did, and you didn't respond, and now I'm calling on the young lady in the back, please.
I just wanted to let my colleague finish, but can I ask you
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
What a disgrace for the journalists involved. One of whom I know. Corrupted by CNN. It's a shame, but that's what happens. You work there long enough. You got to get out of there with your soul intact. Very proud to this day that CNN said, "Oh, Buck, we would like to keep you," and Buck said, "No, thank you, I'm out. This has been not fun, and I don't want to be in this place in any capacity anymore, professionally or otherwise. But thanks." Notice what happened there. You had exactly as I told you for weeks, and I could go back and pull the audio for weeks. It's why aren't we testing as well as South Korea? Why aren't we testing as well as Germany? And now the president says, actually, if you look at the numbers, we're testing better than anybody. They go, why is it a competition? These people are a disgrace. They're horrific. No ethics, no honor. And then for the Asian American journalist there to say, to try to play the race card, why would you say that to me? Are you the dumbest person on the planet? That's what he should have asked her. Because Trump speaks about China 100 times a day. He yells about China to everybody who will listen to him. For her to pretend for 1 second that because she happens to be Asian American, that's why he brought up, go ask China what's going on, is beyond stupid. But the journos were out there, supporting this claim, pretending, oh, look, he's not doing enough testing and he's racist. I mean, these people are like little spoiled idiot children. And they're the ones that are demanding more respect all the time. And they think that they're part of the hashtag resistance. They're pure imbeciles, and the country is in a very difficult period right now. We are hurting, and we need mature adults to be asking questions and to be bringing us worthwhile information. Not this theatrical BS that we get. And it's stunning, isn't it? You heard it for yourself.
Well, clearly the president was rattled enough to walk off because he didn't want to hear the questions from Caitlin Collins and Weijia Zhang. And I think what we saw in that exchange with Weijia Zhang is something that has racial overtones. It is racist to look at an Asian American White House correspondent and say, ask China. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is part of a pattern of behavior from the president that goes back many years. So he doesn't have the benefit of the doubt that someone might have if For the first time ever in their life, they made a comment like that to a reporter. But the president has been rattled by Wei Zhejiang's questions in the past. He has treated her and other female reporters differently in the past. And he's also had this pattern of reacting to minority journalists in a very specific and different way.
Oh, yeah, because he's so sweet all the time to ABC's Jonathan Karl. Because Trump is always just overflowing with praise for all the different CNN, all the different CNN journalists who are white males, for example. Oh no, yeah, no, that's right. It's only the female minorities that Trump says, "Hey, stop being a jerk to." I mean, Stelter is the worst person on television. I'm actually curious. Brian Stelter is really the Mayor de Blasio of TV. In that I want to run this experiment. I've never met a person, and I mean this. Now, there are other people that I don't like, that I think do bad work and are dishonest and scummy, that I know they have big audiences and people will watch them and listen to them. And I mean, it's a shame, but there are people who watch, there are people who watch the primetime shows at CNN and they think that they're getting objective truth in journalism. And it's a shame that they're so emotionally and intellectually lacking in sophistication that they really believe that. That's kind of sad. If they know they're getting left-wing DNC talking points, that's fine. I mean, they can. But if they really think that they're getting true journalism, I think that's a little sad. But with Stelter, just like with de Blasio, I've never met in life a human being who thinks that Stelter or de Blasio is good at the job and worthwhile. Never. Not once. But he does. I mean, Stelter does Zucker's bidding, and he's like a mini Zucker. He's like, I look like Zucker 30 years ago. We kind of look alike, and we're kind of, it's amazing to go on TV. And just, I don't know if it's self-neutered or what, but I love Tucker referring to him as CNN's in-house eunuch was my favorite thing that he said a long time, and referred to Zucker as CNN's reclusive dwarf king, which was also great. Good times, good stuff, Big T. So anyway, I mean, the Wei Zhejiang stuff, Trump speaks about China all the time. He's saying, blame China for all the terrible things that have happened. Don't blame me. It has nothing to do with Wei Zhejiang being Asian, and everyone knows it, and it's Asian American. Everyone knows it. It's stupid. And yet, I thought there were racial overtones. Got his own show at CNN. Probably paying him close to $1 million a year, I'd guess, to do that show. To be horrible, but it is what it is. Yeah, it's stunning. It's appalling. It's stunning. That's where we are. So now we have we had the speaking today in front of, well, it wasn't in front of actually, because the Senate is socially distanced and they had people testifying via remote, but you had Rand Paul, for example, who was talking to Dr. Fauci. And this is how the exchange went. I thought you should hear some of this.
And I think the one-size-fits-all that we're going to have a national strategy and nobody's going to go to school is kind of ridiculous. We really ought to be doing it school district by school district. And the power needs to be dispersed because people make wrong predictions. And really the history of this, when we look back, will be of wrong prediction after wrong prediction after wrong prediction, starting with Ferguson in England. So I think we ought to have a little bit of humility in our belief that we know what's best for the economy. And as much as I respect you, Dr. Fauci, I don't think you're the end all. I don't think you're the one person that gets to make a decision. We can listen to your advice, but there are people on the other side saying there's not going to be a surge and that we can safely open the economy, and the facts will bear this out. But if we keep kids out of school for another year, what's going to happen is the poor and underprivileged kids who don't have a parent that's able to teach them at home are not going to learn for a full year. And I think we ought to look at the Swedish model, and we ought to look at letting our kids get back to school. I think it's a huge mistake if we don't open the schools in the fall.
Now, I'm going to let Dr. Fauci respond to that. It's fun. It's like I'm running the Senate hearing right now. And I'll let Fauci have his say. But I think first hearing from Rand Paul there, this is important. We really have been led to believe by the libs that if only we listen to St. Fauci, everything will be fine. St. Fauci does not have all the answers. St. Fauci is not in a position to tell us when we should open the economy, what we should do, and how we should do it. He's just advising, and he's been not wrong in the distant past. I brought up his history with the early days of the HIV epidemic. Again, we didn't know a lot about HIV when it first came out. Guess what? We know very little about COVID-19, really. All we know is that it's very unlikely, even if you get it, to kill you. It is very dangerous to people in the over 70 age category, pretty darn dangerous, 60 to 70, and then it drops off dramatically below that. And these are the things that we know. Those are critical for public policy decision making. But in terms of mechanism of transmission and what it does fully in the body and how we treat it, there's so much that is unknown. Alex Berenson, who has gotten so much ire from the left, and people are so angry at him because he's willing to question the dominant narrative on this stuff. He shared yesterday on his Twitter account a study from the CDC that was published February 6th. And that's a study. It was a peer-reviewed study in, I forget, it was called like the Journal of Infectious Disease or something similar to that. But I'm going by memory. All I do is read about this stuff, but I can't remember every citation. And it's on his Twitter account, so you can check it out, and I'll do a look for it in a little bit. But it essentially said that they're not sure that for influenza, which is we would assume very similar in its transmission mechanism to COVID-19, they're not even really sure that masks do all that much. That's what the study said on February 6th. It might help a little bit, but not really very much. Look, peer-reviewed, it was a CDC.gov cited paper. The website was cdc.gov, and it published this peer-reviewed paper where all these doctors were like, yeah, based on the data. So there's so much. And I'm not saying that masks don't work, or I'm not trying to do that thing. I'm just telling you there's so much they don't know. And to allow them to make these decisions for us and to pretend there aren't enormous political implications for all of this, too. Oh, just listen to Fauci. Well, what does that mean? How long does every state have to sit around and watch their economy collapse? And I think what's happened in the last couple of weeks is folks have recognized that once we can start our economy again, it's going to be like crawling out of the ditch. We're not going to jump up and start running and everything's great all over again. It's going to be rough going for a while. It's going to be a slow, tough slog back to normal over many months, could even be a couple years. That's really what we're looking at right now. And who knows? Do I think there's going to be a second wave with the reopening with the warmer weather? No, I do not. If I'm wrong, I'll come on air and say it. And when I mean a second wave, I mean something like New York happening somewhere else in the country. Because you would think that if we just start to reopen state after state after state, somewhere would get hit really, really badly. That's what they're telling us, right? At least I shouldn't say you would think. That's what they are claiming. I don't think that's going to happen. Do I think there might be a big resurgence of this in the fall? But yes, but that'll happen no matter what we do. So these are hard calls to make. They're difficult decisions. There are a lot of political implications for them. And for Rand Paul to be saying to Dr. Fauci, look, I don't think you're the only person whose opinion matters here. That seems pretty obvious to me, right? We should all understand that that's true, but it's almost sacrilege right now. And here's what he did to respond.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond to that, even though there are only 32 seconds left?
Yes, and you might make it clear whether or not you suggested that we shouldn't go back to school in the fall.
Well, first of all, Senator Paul, thank you for your comments. I have never made myself out to be the end-all and only voice in this. I'm a scientist, a physician, and a public health official. I give advice according to the best scientific evidence. There are a number of other people who come into that and give advice that are more related to the things that you spoke about the need to get the country back open again and economically. I don't give advice about economic things. I don't give advice about anything other than public health.
Yeah, but public health affects the economy a whole lot right now, doesn't it? It's a little disingenuous. I didn't really like this response. We don't need him to get all defensive and smarmy about it. I also thought it was weird that he was calling Bro Cuomo every night while he had COVID-19, while he's basically running the COVID-19 task force for 320 million Americans. We're going to call Cuomo every night, make sure he's okay. And there are thousands and thousands of people dying of this all over the country, but you got to check in on the CNN anchor that you like so much every night. I mean, he's allowed to. It's America, but it just struck me as odd when I read that story. It struck me as weird. I've tried to be fair-minded toward Dr. Fauci in this whole thing, and I'm not going to say that he has lost all of my all of my willingness to listen, but I'll tell you this much. I'm not impressed by the guy. He has yet to tell me a single thing that I did not already know just from reading the internet and using common sense, and has actually said things that were against common sense, and I think he was proven to have been overly alarmist and wrong about. So when I look at someone's record, that's, I think, the best way. He says the data. What's the data on Fauci and his prognostications at this point? What's the data on the lockdowns and how they've actually played out versus what they told us would happen? They've been wrong a lot. And I think that should matter when they're now telling us, listen to us again about the reopening, when they were at least too slow on the shutdown, probably far too one size fits all in the shutdown, and I think have done incalculable damage already to the economy. That's what I think. So yeah, Fauci, you are not the be all end all, and Rand Paul's right for saying it.
When we started this, yes, we have more cases than anyone else. Yes, we had this European virus attack us and nobody expected it. But we're not only going to change our trajectory, we're going to change the trajectory more dramatically than any place else in the nation.
Did you hear that, folks? Governor of New York, who's done a now, as we see, because we have data, we can look at the facts, a horrifically bad job as the top public health official for the state of New York, which is what the governor ends up being, right? The same way he's the top law enforcement official. He's the top of the executive branch. For New York State, Cuomo has presided over the biggest disaster, not just in the United States, but in the world for COVID-19. And he's taking the very clear political position here of referring to COVID-19 as a European virus. What is that all about? Why would he do that? And you can tell no one else, I've never heard anyone else say that. There was this effort. There's this story that was written in the New York Times about how some of the virus mutated in Italy and other parts of Europe, and then that was what made its way. That mutated virus made its way to the East Coast of the United States. Now the virus is constantly mutating everywhere, right? There are mutations of viruses that are occurring in real time all the time. You don't always change the name of the virus for every place that it stops over other than its initial place of discovery, or else you'd have to change the name of the virus every year, and nobody would know what the heck you're talking about. It makes no sense, right? I mean, think about this for a moment. What a moronic thing to do. But he did it for a reason, right? And the reason is virtue signaling and also just trying to contradict the Trump administration. Trump has been very forceful on condemning China for what it's done here, and his not just the president himself, but also Secretary of State Pompeo and others have been saying, look, China is a bad actor in this and continues to be a bad actor in this. And as we know, was hoarding PPE, was hoarding the materials that it believed were necessary to fight this disease, while they were telling everybody else, oh, no, don't worry about this. It can't even go human to human, right? If the disease can't go human to human, we have zero worry about it. That's what the World Health Organization and what China told us in January. We have zero worry. You know, it's like, don't go take a bubble bath with a pangolin and you'll be fine, right? I mean, it's, who cares? Not a big deal. Unless it can go human to human, we're not all worried about it. And yet, here we are. We're watching as our own government officials try to cover up for China's illicit acts here, the amount of devastation that has been wrought, because the Chinese Communist Party is a corrupt, immoral thugocracy, not theocracy. They hate God. Thugocracy. It's really a mafia state, and here you have Cuomo blame. What was the point of that? Somebody should really, if we had real journalists, they'd say, why are you calling it the Europe? We call it the Chinese coronavirus because, as the president says, it comes from China, which is true. They believe so much in science. They believe so much in fact, they claim. That's where this virus comes from. And it's not the first time a virus has come from China. In fact, we have a whole series of horrific upper respiratory infections that come from China. and it has to do with their practices for raising livestock, and it has to do with their propensity in some parts of the country, and actually a lot of parts of the country, for eating bizarre animals as some kind of cultural practice stretching back to when people were not able to feed themselves because Mao was such an idiot that he destroyed the ability for people even at a subsistence farming level to feed themselves with his collectivist policies. Oh, that's right. The government can be a big, terrible monstrosity. Don't forget it. 60 million dead in Mao's Great Famine. 60 million. Starved to death. Yeah. And that was in the 20th century, in the middle of it, my friends. So just remember that. That's the Chinese Communist Party for you. So Cuomo wants you to be clear. I mean, he almost sounds like someone who's on the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party's payroll. Yeah, it's the European virus. We will not do more until we get to the place of more testing. What do I mean by that? Testing is a situation where you have somebody that runs what you would call a test. This is how he does all these briefings. And I admit in the beginning, at least he wasn't trashing Trump like other people were. So I was saying, look, he's keeping it neutral. He's being, but then I realized every day it's the same darn thing. And then I realized everything that he's been saying is wrong. And he didn't protect the nursing homes. So, as the facts change, the assessment changes. And he's done a horrible job. But he wants the journos and the left to know, it's the European virus. No, it's not a European virus at all. No scientist on planet Earth who knows anything and who's being honest and doesn't have a gun to his head from the Chinese Communist Party would say that it's a European virus. As Trump says, it comes from China.